Hola, Film God family. It's your host, Isusko. Welcome to another episode of the Film Gods, where we document our generation of moving image makers. And today, a little bit left field, but when you get the opportunity to speak to a BAFTA and an Emmy award-winning cinematographer, the only answer that you can ever have is yes, absolutely. Where do I sign? How do I get him on? And today's guest works in wildlife, documentary filmmaking, and niche specifically into underwater. And I kind of describe it that in a parallel universe, as there are obviously multiple or infinite universes, there is a universe somewhere that I'm an AD, I have this podcast, and this episode was recorded, but mermaids exist. They exist. And someone in the mermaid world that works for, Underwater Pictures presents The Little Mermaid. Our guest would be the person they would communicate to film that film underwater in locations in real life. His IMDb, his list of shows that he's worked on, the Blue Chip, the Blue Planet, and all these new, amazing, phenomenal, beautifully shot shows. His latest one, Our Oceans, on Netflix, dropped 20th of November. I've watched the first episode, and I implore you, watch it and watch it with your kids, because the editing's nice. It's got some kind of some cultural reference editings and that kind of stuff where it will make you laugh. There's a few bits that will make you laugh, but if you get to halfway through and see the bioluminescent sequence shot and not think, this is one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen, I'll give you money back, 14-day money back guaranteed. I'd love to be able to say that I'll pay you Netflix for the month, but we're not there. We're not doing that yet. But it is one of the most beautiful things I've seen. And there's a sequence, and we talk about it with the humpbacks, where the camera, they've managed to kind of safely put the camera on the humpback whale, and they're chasing and fighting, and it's just beautifully shot and wonderfully edited to give a passion and a story behind it. There was no way I could say no. So he said yes. He's come on, other side of the world. God bless technology and Zoom. It is one of the most fantastic eps that I've enjoyed, because I grew up, watching the Attenborough shows, and I love it. Absolutely love it. So I'm thankful and blessed that this man said yes. Go and check out Our Oceans, narrated by Barack Obama. And if you like this ep and you like it, share it, go on Insta, become a friend, tag us, like us, become a follower. I'd love to start building this platform up from the small world of commercials that I work and breathe and live in to greater, bigger and bigger, so that we are then becoming a global family of filmmakers. And I thank you all for listening, because around the world I see the downloads. I'm still blown away by the amount of people that listen. So thank you so much, everyone who has been listening day on day now. There hasn't been a day for the last few months that we haven't had downloads and listens. So please, to get us in the charts, if you can, listen to it on the Apple podcast platform, because that helps us in the charts. If you want to, I drop this episode on YouTube so you can see the faces talking. But thank you to our guest. Thank you to you for listening, and enjoy the episode.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So Film God listeners, podcast enthusiasts, today's episode is kind of me fulfilling a bit of a childhood dream because growing up as a kid, the telly would go off, but just to get that extra little half hour before bed, David Attenborough, I'd be me and my sister would be sitting in my parents' bed watching nature documentaries. And that was kind of like the thing that you could do. It didn't count because it was educational and it was beautifully shot. And I think the evolution of the nature documentary area of filming is something that I really wanted to get hold of. And it just transpires that my best mate's brother-in-law is one of the best people to be talking to about this. I was like, I can't get him on. So he's on the other side of the world. It's super late for him. It's brand spanking fresh in the morning for me. And I just want to thank him firstly for giving us our time. But getting straight into it, what is your name and what's your role on the call sheet?
Hey, Cisco. Thanks for having me on. So my name is Roger Munns. And yeah, I am a wildlife cinematographer, underwater director of photography, cameraman, all those things.
Amazing. And was that always the dream? Was there something that happened to you? And if you can look back and join the dots, what's that first point that you go, this was the jumping off point to be where you're at and doing what you're doing?
Yeah, good question. I think listening to you talk about your passion for like wildlife documentaries when you were younger, I really wasn't into it. Like I was so I grew up in Cornwall, kind of a few miles from the ocean, kind of nearer the moor than the sea, kind of rural area, very, very sort of farming kind of stuff, touristy a little bit. And yeah, I was a quiet kid, like quite nerdy, quite academic, into my computer games. I wasn't particularly outdoorsy or like into the water at all. And I really wasn't into David Attenborough. Pretty much everyone in my industry, the first thing they say is like, God, I just love David Attenborough as a kid. And I always wanted to do this. And I'm like, oh goodness. I did not. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So things changed for me a little bit when I went to sixth form college, and I met a bunch of kids there who I really gelled with. And they all lived down by the beach. So I used to go and hang with them down in Polzeath. And that's when I got into like surfing. And while I was at uni, I studied mathematics. I was good at it. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I studied that. And at that time, I kind of thought I might go into finance or accounting, or I had no idea.
Wow.
So I just kept I know, right? I know. Took a hard pivot somewhere.
Yeah.
So I kind of got in with these guys down the beach. And when I was coming home from uni, I would go and live down at the beach. We had a caravan that we bought from a member of the clergy. We called it the vicarage. And me and my mate used to live in the vicarage on a campsite. And we would work. I worked in a surf shop, and I worked in a bar in the evening, and we just surfed all day, and hung out on the beach at night. And it was kind of I was basically a surf bum. And I carried on doing that until I was like 24. I left uni and I just went straight down to the beach from graduation, and lived that kind of surf bum lifestyle. And I would travel in the winter to like Indonesia or Mexico for the waves. And then I think I hit a point at like 24 when I was like, right, I probably can't or shouldn't do this forever. I need to kind of find a path, or find something that I'm interested in doing that can be a career, or at least just change things up, get out of my comfort zone. So I bought like a one-way ticket to Australia, and I think I flew to Sydney in like mid-December with about 500 quid in my pocket. And I just got work in a bar as a waiter in Manly, saved up some money, traveled the coast, and I was still surfing, but I wanted to be out there on my own and just kind of push myself a little bit. And that's when the surf went flat in Byron Bay. I didn't have much money, and I walked into the local scuba diving center, and I didn't have much cash. I was a scuzzy backpacker, and I was like, hey, can I work for you guys for a free dive course? And they were like, oh, mate, you can work for us first, and then we'll see. So I'd worked for them for like a week. I was like scrubbing masks, filling tanks, cleaning the boat when it came back with the divers. And at the end of that, they were like, okay, we'll give you a course. So they gave me my course. And then from the first moment I started diving when I was 25, first moment I hit the water, I was like, this is incredible. I kind of found what I loved and what I wanted to do. And I just thought, I was looking at all these guys around me who were super cool, and they were like dive masters and instructors, and they looked like gods to me. I was like, oh, you guys are so cool. And you're getting paid to travel the world and dive in these exotic locations. I want to do what you do. So I kind of went on this path to become like a dive professional. And it took me 6 months, and I became a dive professional. And I thought, okay, I'll carry on traveling. And then this is a bit of a rather long yarn, but
I like it. I love it.
I got to Borneo. I came to Borneo. I had a friend in Borneo who was like, come out here, dude. The diving's amazing. So I was a dive master looking for work. I was like, sure. I jumped on this ferry. I was in Indonesia. It took 3 days to get there. And I got off, and I did some diving there with my mate, and it was epic. There was sharks everywhere. It was like these deep plunging walls to 600 meters. It was like phenomenal. And then he went home, and his boss offered me a job, and I stayed. And it was then that I met, just randomly, I met this guy, and they were filming. So the first ever Survivor, the UK Survivor, was being filmed in the area on Pulau Tiga, Survivor Island, just nearby. And I met this guy who worked for a company called Scuba Zoo, and they were an underwater filming company. And he was like, "There's an opening just come up." One of the guys, one of their cameramen had just been booted off Survivor for not getting a good shot. So that Nasty Nigel had fired him on the spot. He was
God.
Like, yeah, apparently he was looking at the rushes, and it was like, "Who's camera 4?" And they were like, "Well, that's this guy." And he was like, "All right, he's out." He's voted off. Pretty sick. And so there was this. They had this island filming operation where they filmed guests on dive resorts, and they were kind of pulling guys off that to work on Survivor. And they had this opening, and I was like, absolutely. I 100% want to do that. And they trained me up, and for 2 or 3 years, I was filming like tourists diving every day. I had to make like a 20-minute film every day of these tourists diving, rain or shine, whatever the conditions. I had to make this thing, and then I had to try and sell it to them, right? Because that was my commission. I didn't get salary. So it was kind of like hardcore film school. You didn't get paid unless you made a good film. You had to pitch the movie every night, like, come and buy this film. Yeah. And you're honing your skills, like trying to get better, and you make sure that your clients wanted to buy it. So it was kind of a weird hybrid film school. And that was kind of the pivot moment for me when I started doing that. And then I realized that that's what I wanted to do. So it was sort of a marriage of my love of diving, and I'd always enjoyed photography, and I just kind of put those things together at that point. And that was when I started seeing, someone gave me the box set of the original Blue Planet back in I started filming in 2001, and I think 2002, they gave me this box set DVD of Blue Planet, and I thought that was insane. I just thought it was, unbelievably good and so compelling and beautiful. And I didn't ever believe that I could work on something like that, but it was inspirational, in that I wanted to work in TV. I never crossed my mind that I would work on an Attenborough show or anything like that. I didn't have such grand ambitions. But yeah, that was the moment for me that I thought I wanted to do it. I wanted to carry on. A lot of people just did what I did and then moved on and used it to travel and, film some tourists elsewhere, and then went back to the real world. But it was then that I really knew that I wanted to get into wildlife filmmaking and filming for TV. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I've got a little goosebump. Sorry. That's the kind of intro or answer to a question that I think everyone needs to hear. It's not, I was 5 and I desperately wanted to be a DP and I did thing and this and the other. It was like, do you know what? I was traveling. I was following my instincts. I was following my gut. I was doing what I was enjoying. And then the job found me. You weren't going out going, this is exactly what I have to do. You were like, well, what do I love? And then it suddenly just went, ding. Here you go. Well, here's everything that you love doing. Plus you can make some money from it. And it's like most people go to the office. They go, oh, it's opposite, whoever, Susan and Trevor. Hi, Susan. How was your weekend? Yeah. Okay. Good. Your office is the planet, and specifically what I want to talk about are the ocean, because you've just got Netflix has just dropped their new series, Our Oceans, which I watched the first step yesterday, and it's absolutely beautiful. I'm going to say this now, and everyone can hear it. I'm not a massive film head. People go, "Oh, did you watch that film with it?" Like, no. What about this film? No. No. But I watch stuff like you've shot, and that to me is pure, beautiful cinema. I mean, gorgeous. It's phenomenal.
Well,
And
thanks, man.
there's a few things that I want to get like specifics because there's this one scene in the first step which is Pacific, and there it's the bioluminescent plankton,
Mm, mm.
and all of a sudden you kind of and I think the question will come once I've kind of described what I want to ask. But you see that, and it's happening, and all of these, the seals go in, and they're chasing, and you see these shadows, and it looks like you're kind of messing with the frame rate, and it's like that blurry image. And then you cut, and then it cuts to like this time lapse of the volcanoes, tuk, 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 tuk. And then I picture lightning, and you kind of go, well, what you're doing is you're showing how every part of nature actually is joined together, and the cinematography is, I mean, beautiful. I can't even say beautiful, but you're given such beautiful things to shoot. It must be really hard at times when you go, what do we leave out? Like right, and that was a bit of a wax lyrical because I just think it's the most beautiful thing that I've seen. And as you said, the
Thanks,
Blue
dude.
planets, all of these nature documentaries, I think push technology of filming, whereas we just shot on 35 and it was the same camera, digital came, we just shoot and we're in a studio. But I think that nature documentaries, well, what they do, they push the boundaries of what can be filmed and how it can be filmed and the environments. Like we've got concrete floors that we put dollies on and sticks and lights and things. You're in the middle of an ocean surrounded by hundreds of sharks going, am I going to get out of this? How, And there was this one little, and I've stopped waxing lyrical, but there's the one shot where the sharks are chasing the seals, and then the shark just kind of comes, and you can see the camera, but you forget that the camera is a person, and it kind of comes to it, and it scoots round, and it's trying to do the thing. You're like, you're in the middle of beautiful mayhem, and the way that you can piece it together, and the narrative, and all of the things, and the camera work, the drone stuff's phenomenal. And the drone going into the water, I know it's not, but the cut that goes into the water makes it look seamless. I think everyone can hear that I love nature documentaries. So I'm gonna put my own little thing aside. So you've you've kind of found your passion. You've done some stuff on Survivor. What was that first job, or what was that first opportunity that you kind of suddenly went from, or the the limiting beliefs or that imposter
Mm.
syndrome from going, I'd film random people, at a coral, to then finding and shooting narrative wildlife um
Sure.
documentary. What was that moment? What was that job?
Yeah, sure. So I think I was lucky in that this company I worked for, Scuba Zoo, they kind of had their fingers in all kinds of pies, right? They were filming tourists, they were supplying cameramen for like TV programs, which back then might have been sort of presenter-led travel shows, or kind of reality shows, or kind of like that lowbrow stuff. But they had ambitions to do more, and that was great. And I kind of stuck with them. And I think my sort of intro into TV, I think the first thing I shot was it was like a Dutch travel program, and they needed an underwater camera person for one day to film their presenter having a little snorkel around some reefs in Borneo. So I did that. And then back then, I don't know if you remember the Really Wild Show. Do you remember the Really Wild Show on the BBC?
That does ring a
Michaela
bell.
Strachan
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and Nick Baker, and so that was like a kids' TV show, but had a big budget, and they would travel the world looking at wildlife, and they're all naturalists working on the shows, and that was a bit of a stepping stone for people because it was quite simple sequences and storytelling, but nevertheless quite high production value. So I got a job on a couple of those, filming with Nick Baker and Michaela in some exotic locations in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. And I worked alongside a guy called Mark McEwen, who you probably don't know, but he's like wildlife filming royalty. He's like a topside guy that's worked on pretty much every Attenborough show you care to name. And back then, he also was cutting his teeth on the Really Wild Show. So I did a few of those, and then as always, I think in this industry, someone just takes a chance on you. You get that opportunity, and I think it's so hard to break into. I don't know what it's like in your industry. I imagine it's similar, but certainly well, I get so many people asking me, how do I break into this industry? You know, emails, Instagram messages, and it's hard. And really, what happened with me is what has happened with a lot of my friends, is that you work hard adjacent to it, you do all the stuff you're supposed to do, or you weave a path that's different from everyone else, and then finally someone gives you a chance, and that might be because another guy got sick, or you're just in the right location. And in this case, it was a producer called Miles Barton at the BBC, who sadly passed away a few years ago. But he was working on Life in Cold Blood, which is an Attenborough show about reptiles and amphibians. And I was situated here in Borneo, and we have this amazing event at Sipadan, it's basically a turtle mating orgy. What happens is all these green turtles come together, and you get like 10 green turtles fighting over one female turtle, and they'll grab onto it with their hooked flippers, and then someone will grab onto the other male, and then they'll bite each other and try and kick each other off, and it's like extremely violent, not what you'd expect from turtles. But we were here and we could do it cheaply. I was here, we was kind of low cost. It was a low cost punt for him, low risk, low cost. So he was like, go and film this for me. And I had this was before kind of not pre-internet, but there certainly wasn't Instagram or WhatsApp or anything like that. And I think I basically had a 1 hour call with Miles, who was in Bristol, on the phone. And he kind of described to me what he wanted. And then that was just, I gave him a budget and went off and did it. And filmed this sequence over 2 or 3 weeks with the help of some other shooters came in, and I had to go off on another shoot, and they helped kind of finish it off. But that was my first, what we call sort of pure blue chip landmark documentary, which is that at Attenborough, no presenter, sweeping score. Those are the big blue chips that everyone wants to work on in our industry. That was my first chance. And luckily I did well and I delivered, and it was a pretty popular sequence. And that was that was the moment that the door kind of cracked ajar for me. But the BBC back then, we used to have the nickname the Big Boys Club, because it was just so hard to break into. And even when there was it was such a tiny niche, and they were probably underwater back in the early mid noughties, 2005 2006. There were probably 5 underwater camera operators that they would use regularly around the world.
Wow.
And it was just such a tiny niche, and to gain that trust and to get more work, and there just wasn't that much work either. They would make 1 show a year, and most of it might be on land, and might have 1 or 2 underwater show sequences, So there just wasn't that much work around. So even after that, I had to fill my schedule with filming presenters and doing dive resort promotional videos, and you had to hustle to fill in the gaps. And I think it was a couple of years before I did my next blue chip landmark for Life, which was an even bigger, the Humpback Heat Run. So it was that was my first opportunity. And like I say, it was just a guy taking a chance on me, really. And I'll forever thank Miles for that.
Yeah, but let's just wind it back a little bit. You say it's someone taking a chance. If you hadn't have seen the opportunity, spoken to Miles, put forward a proposal, not tried to have an amazing huge markup and you kind of went, I'm going to take this opportunity. I know that I may not make the most amount of money out of this, but it's the chance to get into the foot in the door. Yes, Miles took a chance, but I think your belief in yourself was the point that, a lot of people have just gone, oh, I know there's turtles here, but you know what? Unless someone comes to film it, I'm not going to bother. And I think that's the beautiful thing about what we do in the filming, is that you can make it happen for yourself. You can go out and find something and shoot your own stuff and make it. Yes, we got Instagrams and all the rest of it to become famous or get hits or whatever. But your vision of going, there's a scene here, or a sequence as it seems to be referred to. Now that seems really strange for me, because normally in commercials, you've got an agency, you've got a client, they've come up with the idea, it comes to the director, they shoot storyboards, we go to a location, we say it's a 35mm from here on a slider and a tracking shot from here. How do you put together those sequences then? Because you're filming. And this is no disrespect to kind of tourist videos, but there's probably no narrative. It's just hello, happy people against lovely fishes, beautiful people walking in a resort. How did you understand and grasp that kind of, right, I need to, and is there a, in our world, it's, start with a wide, set the scene, mid close up. What are those sequences? What are the tick
Yeah,
points that you need to get? The
you're
grammar,
talking
the
about like
film
the grammar,
language.
yeah, the
Yeah.
grammar of our filmmaking. Yeah, I mean it's a great question. So yeah, obviously I understood how to shoot a sequence, from my presenter-led stuff. It's like, two-shot of presenter with animal, close-up of animal, animal with a bit of presenter in the background, pull it out again. So I had some understanding of that kind of basic grammar of storytelling. But I think, yeah, Blue Chip Landmark has a grammar of its own, and that is the key. That is why, like, especially underwater, kind of learning that has been hard. And I think even if you look at Blue Planet 20 years ago, the storytelling is poor. Like the sequence building isn't quite there yet, and there'll be some overly long shots or a cut from a very wide shot to something. There'll be a weird insert. And I think people just didn't quite understand how to build those sequences, how to build those stories, and that narrative in the same way. So I think in the mid noughties, it was starting to get a lot better, a lot more informed, and the quality of people before it had been very niche. Like, it's very hard to find a guy that had, or a woman that had 1,000 dives, good experience underwater, and who knew how to shoot a camera that back in those days shot film, or we were taking these huge Sony HD cameras underwater, that they were like, took 2 people to lift them. Wow. So just getting experience, getting your hands on one of those was incredibly hard. And then as we move on, like through the noughties, and towards the time that I was starting to use cameras, were getting smaller, more accessible. So that was really helpful. You didn't have to the traditional way in was to assist a cameraman, to become their assistant, watch what they do, help them out, light for them, just watch their workflow, and then at some point take the camera off them, get a few shots behind the scenes or whatever, work your way in. But yeah, Miles took a bit of a chance, and there was coaching there. Like the BBC are very good at like elevating you and bringing you up. And that time, there was a storyboard. The way these things normally work, it was interesting hearing you talk about agencies and so on, and that the rhythm and the way that your shoots happen. So for us, story is everything. Like there are only so many stories out there that are interesting fish behaviors, animal behavior. And so in a big production like a Blue Planet or an Our Oceans, you'll have a team, you'll have some researchers, you'll have some assistant producers and a producer for each episode. That's typically the makeup. The producer of the ep, they'll have an AP, might be shared across a couple of eps, and a researcher. And those researchers are out there just mining the internet. They're going to scientific conventions, reading scientific papers, and they're trying to find interesting animal behavior, ideally that has never been filmed before. And that is the currency of our business story. Everyone's looking for that next cool behavior, that orca that's going to leap out of the air and grab a seal, mid-flight, or that fish that can use a tool. They're looking for something special to grab the audience's attention. In the case of Our Ocean, I shot a veined octopus in Limbo Strait, which is shooting rocks out of its siphon at fish. It's an octopus with a gun, right? And that's kind of grabbed people's attention online. And so they're looking for stuff like that. So I was helped with the turtle mating thing was on our doorstep, and it was a story that Scuba Zoo, our team, brought to the BBC and said, hey, this is happening, we could film this for you, and we can do it pretty cheaply because we're out here, take a chance on us, we can do it. And I was the guy that did it. So that can get you in the door. Like if you've got a compelling story, then usually they'll take a chance on you to shoot it if you can, or they might send someone else more experienced. You might help them or learn from them, depending on where you are in your career. And luckily, when that first opportunity came along for me, I was far enough along that they were prepared to give me a shot, and then they helped me understand what shots I needed. Back then, we couldn't send rushes back, Nowadays, you can WhatsApp rushes back every night or use Frame.io, and they can be almost directing from Bristol, But in those days, it was just a phone call every week going, how's it going? Yeah, it's nice going. All right, get some good stuff, I think. Okay, great, carry on. It was another age. Yeah.
So, I mean, this just because I really want to touch deep on that progression to now being And if the terminology is correct, it's kind of like series DOP. It seemed like our oceans, there was kind of three of you.
Yeah.
What does that, how does that progression, I mean, it seems like you've just explained it, which is you get in, you do what you can, you get the odd shot in, you learn from the DP, the cameraman, camerawoman, camera person that's doing it, and then you just get on more shows, more sequences. Is that then the plan? Then
Yeah.
to then series DOP. Are you as hands on as you used to be, or are you trying to now? Are you managing from the boat, or do you still love getting into the water?
Oh no, I'm 100% in the water. So yeah, the progression really is like, yeah, once you become like a sequence cameraman, we would probably say, or a sequence camera operator,
Yep.
then you're shooting sequences. So all of these, just to sort of give a broader overview, that these landmark productions, I keep talking about is, the blue planets, the planet Earths, the frozen planets. They're typically made up of, between 4 and 8 episodes, and each episode really is a collection of stories on a theme. It's almost like a collection of short stories or vignettes on a theme, right? That theme might be the habitat, deserts, ocean, coral reefs, seagrass, or it might be based on, whether mammals, amphibians, it could be classifications. It varies from show to show, but essentially it's a bunch of stories on a theme that are then tied together. In our oceans, we use the Great Ocean Current to kind of as a theme. Each episode is a different ocean: Pacific, Indian, Southern, Atlantic, and then we use the kind of the movement of that ocean, the current around the ocean, to weave our stories together. But yeah, so when you get employed, typically you'll be called up or emailed by a producer or an assistant producer, and they will, unless you're bringing a story to them, they will find you and they'll say, "We've got this story. We think you've got the right skill set for it," because there are niches within niches, right? There are operators that love to shoot, let's say, open ocean. So there are people that are known for shooting whales, specifically, or open ocean bait ball events. Myself, I kind of specialize in open ocean cetaceans, and then also on what we call like benthic macro shoots, something like an octopus running around on the sand, doing lots of cool stuff, which is like very small. We call those macro shoots, and they're very different. Like you need to be across grip, sliders, all the kind of stuff that you might use on set. We try and bring that production value underwater as well. So, we'll have underslung quad pods, sliders, all kinds
in the water.
Yeah, in the water.
How do you sit a slider in the water?
Someone that shoots like a whale is swimming around like, it's a totally different skill set than shooting, a crab. And so, we have to marinize all the stuff, right? What we're doing, what we always are trying to achieve is to try and bring that topside production value that you guys have underwater, to try and match that. So we have like specialist engineers who will marinize, and that's not putting soy sauce and stuff on it, but it's like, you're basically like making stuff waterproof.
Yes.
And then so that we can bring it underwater. So we have like some small motion control rigs for like, cup 2-axis movement.
Yep.
We're taking scopes underwater for getting that kind of inside out perspective, that kind of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids look. Underslung tripods. We have all kinds of stuff, man. So which we try and bring that production value underwater and get better all the time, right? Personally, I have a philosophy about grip. We don't get into that now, but like personally, I try not to use it if I don't have to. Try and be more mobile. But
does that feel like, because they kind of, there's that old philosophy. It's like you looking into the rock pool changes the rock pool because the animals change. It's like the smaller. Is it the smaller that you can be, the more unaware the nature and life is? Because I've got in my head some massive underwater technocrane that you're like shooting filming sharks with, and they're like, well, what's this thing here? Well, there's practicality to it, and there's also, diving is like the world's biggest faff anyway. The equipment that we use to get underwater is horrific. The scuba, we mostly now we use closed circuit rebreathers. Okay. What does that
mean? Are okay, so scuba, most people are familiar with, right? You have a tank of gas on your back,
Yes.
and a reg, and you breathe in the air from that, and then you breathe it out as bubbles.
Yeah.
Right. So closed circuit rebreather. You have a couple of tanks on your back, and some scrubber. And then what happens is you breathe in the oxygen, comes in through here, and then you breathe it out through another loop. It goes in, the scrubber cleans out the carbon dioxide, absorbs it. You get a little bit more oxygen added, and then you rebreathe it. So it's a closed loop. It's almost like what a spaceship would have. You're basically rebreathing all that air. So you use a lot less air. You're not putting out bubbles, so marine life's not scared of you. The bubbles make a lot of noise going through the water column, and sharks get scared of it. Fish know it's there. So yeah, if you're trying to film something like a hammerhead or whatever, then you get down on the bottom, do a rebreather. It's almost like you're invisible. So that's amazing technology. It's kind of military technology that we're now using. So that's a FAF. It's big. And then getting grip down, you're having to bring down this like 30-kilo tripod or slider. You need lift bags to float it down because it's too heavy once it's in the water. So you fill that with air and you kind of float it down like a hot air balloon, set it up. It's a lot of work. So my philosophy is that, you only do that if it's really going to give you value. If it's really going to add to the story, that movement, that motion. Don't just do it because it looks cool. It has, story drives everything. And yeah, I also like to remain nimble. Once you're locked into that huge system, you're kind of limiting yourself, whereas if you're handheld, you can change angle instantly, shift things up more quickly. So I wouldn't say I'm anti-grip, but I just think it's just a tool in the box that you pull out when you need it, Everyone has a different philosophy with that. But yeah, the main goal for us is really, to bring that topside production value underwater, which can be tricky.
I mean, that kind of probably explains how so in the first step, there's the fishes that kind of pop out, the male fishes that pop out and do the dance. And the soundscape is beautiful because I think it's in Mexico or it's near the.
That's right.
So you got to see the thing. All of a sudden you hear the, you got this Mexican trumpet, and it feels like it's going to be a standoff, and then it changes. And there's a few little bits editing wise that seem like they've taken classic ideas. There's like, you're shooting, you see the one pop out, and you hear the trumpet, and you see the other one pop out. So they're like the two cowboys. They're going to thing, and then it cuts to this other one, and the fish just pops in. So it's like someone that's like shut the shutters on it. It tickled me so lovely. And then they start doing.
I'm glad you enjoyed that. Yeah,
you're so close in, like the macro lens or whatever what you're using. You are so close to these fishes, but they're still doing their thing. No, it's absolutely, it's gorgeous.
They're about that big. That they're about like 1 inch long. So that was. Yeah. That was filmed by Roger Horrocks, my colleague, and he said he got down underwater and someone pointed to a rock and was like, and he was like, "It's a rock. What am I supposed to be filming here?" Like, no. And then he saw this blenny, and it's always the way, man. And the producers are like, "Yeah, it's about it's about this big," and then you get there and it's like, it's that big. How am I going to film this? But he used a Laowa scope. So it's often like they use it a lot in like food commercials and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so it gets you right up close to it. It's got a tiny objective lens, and it kind of makes you feel like you're in their world. But those things are tiny. But we try to use a multi-pronged approach. So like if you look at the humpback whale sequence at the start of Pacific.
Beautiful. Please tell me there was some GoPro or so, like, or it looks like how you managed to do it. I have no idea. That was multiple. Alex Warren was the AP on that. So the assistant producers typically will come out and direct. So he would direct. We had kind of 3 teams. So we had a scientific permit, and we got these scientists, a guy called Lars, to deploy these CAT cams. So they record like depth, speed, water temperature, and they also have like a GoPro style camera on it, like a small action camera. And typically they've been quite poor quality, but we helped, and they got some like high quality ones, and they use like a very soft like latex, and they attach them to the whales. They very gently, like as the whale surfaces, they pop the camera on the back of the whale, and it kind of just sucks on with this very soft latex. Stays on for like an hour, and then it pops off, and there's a small like GPS signal on there, so then they can then track it, collect it, take it back, and go through it and see what was on it. And they managed on this occasion, they managed to put some carbs, right? And you can see the carp is like milking,
getting milk from its mother, and they also had
The fight
some
sequence.
during the heat run. Yeah, it makes.
Oh
it makes
my
the fight
God.
sequence.
Yeah.
It really does. I filmed the underwater shot. So the second team was me underwater with my assistant Kim, and Alex was directing, and then we also had another team flying drone. So those three things combined to make that sequence. And for me, that was one of the best covered sequences I've ever worked on. Like, there's no fluffing in it. There's no sort of. Sometimes you can get away with a bit of narration driving the story while you just look at some sort of generic images, and while the narrator's telling you something, but everything. We just got all the behavior in that, and the CAT cams just provided the energy. When you're on board with that whale and you're surging through the water and it's smashing into another one, it feels visceral. It feels like you're there. So really elevated.
So lucky.
Really elevated the cinematography. To be honest, I mean, it was just spectacular. Yeah, really,
Can we
really
deep
good.
dive into that sequence? So let's say for that sequence there, you've kind of gone right. We know that these humpback whales do this. At what point in the year is it a multi-year thing? Does it did you shoot it kind of one year, didn't get it, shoot it the next year, didn't get it, or is it on a day you just get lucky and it, or what is that time process?
Sure. So I'll speak broadly first. So typically when we make a landmark show, we typically have a 2-year shoot window, and that was the case for our ocean. So it was about a 2.5 year shoot window, and there's a few reasons for that. One, it takes time to find the stories and mobilize, and you have to get film permits, which I'm sure you know about. That stuff can take months, a lot of lead time. But also it gives us, generally stuff is seasonal, right? So something that usually happens one time of the year. So it gives you 2 cracks. So if you have bad weather or the event just doesn't happen for, there's an El Nino or something, then you have a second pop at it the next year. So in this case, we had. It's a seasonal event, right? These whales are coming down from Alaska. They travel thousands of miles to Hawaii in order to give birth, because the water there is calm and warm, and the mothers don't feed for several months, so they need somewhere that's very relaxed, calm, and they just literally are transferring all their body weight into these calves while they don't feed. And Hawaii is that place for them. And there's a population of about 10,000 whales that make that journey and hang out in the waters around Maui. So we knew what time we wanted to be there. You've normally got, the calves are born. There's a time that those competitive events happen, and there's a time that the calves are born, and you want to film the mother-calf interaction. So you kind of got to get that kind of nexus point where everything's going on, right? And we did. So we were there in February, around February, and we have a 3-week shoot, and that's pretty typical for most shoots. Can be longer, can sometimes be shorter, but usually it's like 3 weeks on the ground. That's the kind of time it takes to get most behaviors well and cover it as well as you want to. Sometimes you're at you're on day 18, 19, and you still haven't got it right. Everyone's getting sweaty. And other times you
rebook the hotel for another week, guys. We're gonna
you got to make those calls, right? You're like, do we stay or do we give up? Do we pump more money into it? So in this case, we did 3 weeks, and we did very well. Like we got some really nice encounters. First round, first round. We went out there and we did it, and we had part of that success always is like local knowledge, and in our case that was Kim and our captain who have been at those events before in Hawaii. And their knowledge of sort of how to approach the whales at the surface without disturbing them. We have scientists on board as well who, will make sure we are not having negative encounters. So if she feels like the whale has reacted negatively, which you can see at the surface, if it moves off rapidly or whatever, then she'll be like, okay, we'll leave that whale alone. So there's a lot that goes into it in that respect to make sure, obviously, our primary focus is, if it's just TV, so you just want to make sure that no animals are stressed out during the filming of anything, just to make some TV, that's not worth it. So we're always very, very conscious of that.
I think the ethics of, we pay actors, they learn lines, we set the environment up. You go into their world and try to be as invasive as possible so that the natural thing can happen. But are there ever moments that you feel like say for the one instance, there's the shark that's caught, because I think what the beautiful thing that our oceans has done is that it shows you all these wonderful things that are happening. It then intersperses, it kind of cracks a door into that world, and then it intersperses it with kind of going, the human element, but we're doing this, but we're doing that, and we're affecting this and we're affecting that, which is quite nice because you kind of get, especially for younger viewers, that just see these beautiful things and go, yes, but this is what the humans are doing. When you get put in, or someone is put in an environment where, say, that shark is caught up in the net, where does the ethics lie of, or is it a personal thing of, you know, do you help the animals? Do you not? Do you stop the lion from eating from the thing, or do you have to cut the shark out, or do you not? Like it, that must, like me, I apologize if I step on a snail. If I'm walking and I'm on a school run and I step on a snail, I'm like, I'm so sorry, dude. Or if I see a worm on the floor, I'm picking it up and I'm putting it on the grass, but then I'm affecting its universe and its existence, but I kind of feel like taking it off. You're in a much greater environment, and the risk or the odds or the ethics are so much greater because you are in these environments and you can, or you could. And so where does all of that sit? If
Yeah,
that
I
if
think it's a
that's even a
tricky.
question, sorry, I don't even know if that was a
Yeah, no,
question.
no, I totally get it. Yeah, it's a tricky one, and I have at an extreme end of that. I have a friend of mine who is like a conservation photographer, and he's shooting, he's going and watching like trophy hunters and getting photos of them hunting and going to places in Korea where, to dog markets and all kinds of stuff. And he's dealing with that on a daily basis.
Mm,
That decision to do something or to document it. I think, you kind of go so in my field, I'm more likely to come across, like some trash or a fish on a line or something like that. And I think if that's what you're intending to film, then you have to harden yourself
hmm
to some extent and kind of do it for the greater good, right? You're there to film something which hopefully will be hard hitting and which people will see and will change minds. And you've also got to be concerned if you are in situations where you might be at risk by helping that animal, either from the animal or the people that are harming the animal, then you also have to take that into account. You
mm,
know, I've filmed before at like at big fish markets, in Taiwan, and you go in not undercover, but you go in all smiley and like, oh, let's look at that shark, that's amazing, and like, can I get a shot of it? Yeah, my friend, you can take a picture with it as well, and you can wave high, and all the time you're trying to harvest some hard-hitting conservation footage of these sharks that are being finned legally and so on, and it can be tense. There's guys walking around with machetes everywhere,
wow.
easy to cut the fins off with. So you have to be conscious of your own safety. But there's no easy answer. I think in some situations you're going to intervene, and in others you aren't. Depending on your remit, what you're there for, and personal safety. And of course, if you can help an animal, you definitely will. And another something that we have come across now a lot of the time is pollution and human pollution and trash, plastic pollution. So we're often kind of cleaning up as we go, to some extent, removing a net or something like that. It's just kind of part and parcel of diving now, or being in nature. It's kind of
Mm,
cleaning up the human impact as you go along.
yes, which is sad, but it's the unfortunate truth of people just think it's someone else's problem, and if it's not in our waters, if it's not in our ocean, it doesn't. If you don't see it, it doesn't exist. But highlighting those issues, which I think this documentary does, is a beautiful thing. And then so the flip side to having this amazing, in my head, amazing opportunity, amazing life to go and see the world, which is my bucket list. Go around, see as many cultures, as many people, animal, wildlife, environments, all of that beautiful tick box. And most people that do sit at a desk and do the commute every day, their dream is to go and see the world. Is there a flip side? Because I know when every time I go away for a shoot, and people go, "Oh my God, you're in thing. That must have been amazing." It's like I saw the location, I was in a minibus, and I saw my hotel room, and we shot all day, and then we went home, and we had to, or we went to the hotel, and then we prepped for the next day, and that was it for 20, 30 days. and my wife is at home having to deal with the kids. You know, that kind of the flip side to it. Everyone goes, "Oh my God, it's amazing." What's that been like? Because I guess if you're away for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, how does that affect what it could for some people be the most important thing, which is the family life?
Yeah, yeah, that's a strong question, Cisco. So, yeah, I've got a couple of kids and a wife, living out here in Borneo, and I mean, it's such a compelling part of doing what I do is the interactions with the wildlife. You can't. It's such a driver, right? I mean, being in the water with a 50-ton humpback whale that lets you into its life, and
Wow.
as the calf swims down and you're right there, and that is it's such an incredible privilege, and I'm fortunate enough to get paid to do it, and there's pressures that come with it. I'm not just not just sitting back enjoying it. I've got to get a wicked shot, right?
Gotta get the shot,
But
or
obviously,
Nigel kicks
it's
you out. We know what
exact
happens.
exactly, man, exactly. I learned that at a very early age. So that is such a privilege, and I will never, that. So you don't want to moan about going away, but it is hard. It's hard on me. The travel is hard. The work is hard. Our typical day is, it'll be a 4:30 start. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything new here, but it's early starts, it's working all day, and then it's back at sunset, and then it's de-rigging, prepping the gear, going through the rushes. So we're working kind of typically 16-hour days. Kind of, and it gets very tough on me personally, and I'm pretty burned out by the end of it. And then obviously while I'm away, my wife is the primary caregiver for our kids. My kids miss me and I miss my kids, and she's having to do everything without me. So it's hard on the family, for sure. I probably do, trying to think, like I do between 100 and 150 days a year on location.
Wow.
Typically, and there are people out there that do 200 plus, with families, which is insane. For me, there's a line, there's sort of around that 120 days. If it starts to push higher than that, then obviously I'm earning more money, which is great, but it starts to take a toll on the family, and it's hard for everyone. So it's hard to find that balance. I don't know if you found it. Finding that magic balance is it's very tricky. I'm still trying.
Well, if you find it, write the book. I mean, it'll be a bestseller in our industry because it can be tough. And as you said, there's bills and mortgages to pay. And once you find, I think, from my perspective, Fee, knowing that I love what I do can make it. It doesn't make it easier, but at least she knows that it's a passion. It's not. I'm not. I think there's an understanding that it's for you, it's a calling, it's a passion, it's what you're great at, and your ability to do it, as you said, is a gift. Some people are just working for loads of money and they're just working for the money. You started doing this before you were getting paid. You were doing this because this was what you love to do. And I think that comes through with your story. I think that comes through with how you talk about it. And you've gone from, and what I love to hear through people's stories is where your story, where you look back, you go, I was gonna work at Canary Wharf. I was gonna be a banker. I was gonna work in the city. I was gonna do something, but you knew that wasn't for you. You had the courage to just go, I'm not gonna do it. Yourself in called beach bum or surf bum, or you kind of you had a calling. You went with it. You went with everywhere, and you did everything that you thought was right at that time. And through all of those experiences, because your IMDb is like a wish list of most people that do what you want to do. It's the best shows, telling the best stories, using probably the best equipment with the best people. And you've now reached that point where you're now in charge of the series. I think that just goes to show the commitment that you've had and the commitment that you've given. And it does. The industry does ask a lot. We miss birthdays. We miss, friends' parties, friends' weddings, this and that and the other. But I think your core friends and those families understand that there is a reason and a purpose for it. and
Yeah.
as lovely as it would be going to, a mate's 40th, if you had turned down the opportunity to go and shoot something that was your highlight, your mate would probably be like, "What the fuck are you here for?" Just you want to be there. I know you want to be there. We'll just catch up when you're back. That I think that sets the difference between doing a job that you hate just for money and doing a job that you love that you would do for no money.
Yeah, yeah, and it's yeah. I think that's a very good point, and it is a kind of a bipolar lifestyle as well. You do kind of have two lives, that are running parallel to each other, and it's interesting. I don't know if you find this, but I certainly have, like, you form when you're in. I'll be on a shoot 3 weeks with people, and you're living in a house or on a boat in very close proximity. You would never live that way with even your close friends back home. So, like, it's very kind of intimate. You're all over each other for like 3 weeks, and you form these very strong relationships with people. They become your best mate within, like, they have to. They're either become your best mate or you fall out quickly. It goes one of two ways, right? So you form these really strong relationships with people, and then after 3 weeks, you and your new best mate are just like, all right, see you then, and you may never work together again. So I find that quite hard to deal with as well, because you kind of, you form these strong bonds, and then they're just snapped. So that can be quite an unusual kind of emotional roller coaster. But I just want to go back to that. I think you mentioned, you were like, you're now in charge of the series. So I never completely answered your question about the series DP role.
Yes.
So I'd probably just wind that back a little bit. So most camera ops or cinematographers would shoot a sequence, and they might, as I explained, there's a bunch of sequences in each series, probably 50 or 60 in a series, and often you might shoot one, you might shoot a part of one. If you're good, or you might shoot 2 or 3. You literally can't shoot everything, right? Because they've got to shoot 50 sequences in 2 years, so you can't be everywhere at once. So it's quite common that most of the time I'm just bouncing around. I'll do a sequence for these guys, a sequence for them, a sequence for them, and something will come out, and I'll have 1/100th of it or 1/50 of it will be me. And then with Blue Planet 2, and then again with Our Oceans, which has just come out, I had the opportunity to be more heavily involved. So for Blue Planet 2, I think I shot 9 or 10 sequences across the series.
Is that what you won the Emmy for?
No, I won the Emmy for Life. I won a BAFTA for.
Oh, sorry.
Get it right.
Get it right. Jesus.
Yeah, the Emmy was for Life. That was a different one.
Wow, amazing.
But yeah, so like, I was very fortunate. So with Our Oceans, it was an opportunity for myself, Roger Horrocks, and Justin McGuire, with the 3 sort of series DPs, and our roles really were, rather than we're normally contracted shoot by shoot, right? So we had like an overarching contract, and we, for like 18 months, to work exclusively on that program, which is the first time I've ever done anything like that. And it's done in the industry, but not that often. And we also had a role in terms of sort of crafting a style and a look for the series, and putting together a shoot Bible. And then also, it was COVID times, right? It was, the pandemic was in full flow. We started principal shooting in early 21, I think. So it was like Delta, I think, the Delta virus had just come out, and everyone thought it was over. And then suddenly that was out. So a lot of the world was shut down for the first year of shooting. So we did a lot of remote shoots, where we would use local operators, say in Japan or Australia. And then they might, kind of as Miles did for me 20 years ago, there would be some coaching involved, just in terms of the grammar, that usually these people were very good operators, but might not necessarily have shot blue chip before. But you were kind of forced into the situation where you had to take a chance. So we would use them, and then I might get involved, get on a few calls with them, explain a few things, be there on call in case they had any issues with technology or lensing or whatever. So it's kind of, helping to consult and advise in that way. And that was a strong part of the role, especially for that first sort of 9 months where we couldn't get out on that many shoots. During that time, I was kind of locked into Malaysia. So we would have a 12-week lockdown, then we'd come out of it, and we would go and shoot some sequences here in Malaysia, because we couldn't leave the country. We could leave, but we couldn't come back in. So we were kind of locked into Malaysia, and we were shooting that there. So that was kind of the series DP role, was really that. I certainly wouldn't call myself like the boss of any of the shooters, or I wasn't shy, but I was certainly there to advise and help. But we had some incredible other cinematographers working, very experienced. So it's, in that respect, there wasn't much for me to do with those guys. You're there if they need help. But yeah, certainly in terms of like crafting a shoot Bible and sort of shoot style, that's what the three of us were responsible for. And of course, shooting a lot. I think I did eight sequences on the show, and Rog Horrocks probably did a similar amount. Justin was the top side guy, but he probably shot a similar amount as well. So we kind of got to shoot the lion's share of the show between us. We probably shot good 40% of it between us.
Wow. And is that then the kind of the pinnacle, the plateau of where you've been reaching? Is that now, series DP? Do you then go direct? I mean, it doesn't sound like there is a director, because everything is what
well,
more,
in the field there's a director.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we have directors in the field who are generally assistant producers, or maybe the producer
APs.
comes out and directs. Yeah, or even sometimes the researcher. But yeah, there isn't. Yeah, in terms of like advancement, I guess there isn't anywhere else to go. Most people would just continue to shoot, and we do it because we love to shoot. We don't want to be sitting. The DP role, I think, in what you do is very different, right? They might not necessarily pick up the camera. They're going to be, talk to the director, crafting and telling people what to do. But that's not why I'm in the game. It doesn't really exist in wildlife filmmaking anyway. But I wouldn't want to take that step. Certainly not yet. Even if it were available, I want to be in the field. That's why I do it. I think if I ever stopped being in the field, I'd probably find something more lucrative to do and less stressful. I don't want to be the guy sitting at home going like, have they got the shot? Oh man, it's bad weather. How are we doing? Oh no. Yeah.
They give it a few years. I'm going to see you on the train going to Canary Wharf in a suit. Yeah, well, I knew I'd get there eventually.
Yeah, go into those hedge funds, man.
Yeah, man, let's go make some money. No
one's in this for the money, man. No one's in it for the money.
We do it for the love. Always have.
Yeah.
And that's and now you've kind of reached here, because that it's got Barack Obama narrating, which actually, because I've seen a couple. There was one that Morgan Freeman did for another show. I will always be a David Attenborough person. I mean, it's just because he is the voice of nature, but it works. It's nice. It was a nice little subtle change. His intonation was good. It seemed to work. It was nice. It was beautiful. I mean, it looks, and as you said, because it's shot and it looks so beautiful, you don't need the constant narrative to tell you what you're seeing, because you're seeing it. And that bioluminescent scene, some of those, some of the drone shots, that kind of 360 drone shot of the dolphins, I was like, where's the boat? Like, how? I can't see the boat. How far? Normally we shoot and behind camera is just a horde of people and tents and things. When you're chasing those dolphins and they're doing the splash and they're doing just whipping 360 around them, I'm like, they're in the middle of nowhere. And that must be the beautiful thing, is that you get into these environments where it's it's nature, and there's no in between.
That is definitely one of the things that I love. Being on a remote island as the dawn breaks and you're about to hit the water, and there's no one around. That's a pretty special feeling. Although these days, and I blame Instagram for this 100%, but there's a lot of tourist dodging now. A lot of these beautiful national parks and coral reefs are getting kind of choked by people looking for a selfie. More so than 5 or 10 years ago. It's pretty wild. I think a friend of mine, Alex Vale, just did a piece on BBC Earth where he's out filming snow leopards, and then they cut to like the 100 photographers that are like all around him, all trying to get their photo of a snow leopard while he's shooting for a BBC Asia, or what I think the production was.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we're coping with now. And you sometimes have to put down your camera because some tourists are swimming past, or you literally can't shoot because they're swimming inside the school of fish that you're trying to shoot. Photographers are flashing strobes everywhere. So that is one of the big challenges now, is it's kind of the over tourism, and there's a lack of kind of, I don't want to say respect, but there's a lack of understanding and how to approach wildlife from people who are less experienced. You know, they're not giving it the same, not as sensitive as they should be being. You know, just mostly because they're so keen to get that photo. So yeah, that is certainly one of the challenges we face in the wild. It's not always the middle of nowhere. You know, I remember when I was filming the heat run segment of that Pacific. Yeah, they were like, I was finning through the water, about to dive down, free diving, and while I was swimming, I just heard this voice. I'm kicking like crazy, right? And I'm trying to get in front of these whales, and I just heard this: "Hey guys, if you look over the port side, you can see a cameraman swimming through the water, probably filming for Nat Geo or something. There he is. There he goes. Give him a wave." And I kind of looked up as I'm kicking like crazy, and there was like a whale watching boat with like 200 American tourists on it. I was up there going, "Oh hey!"
You're going to end up in so many family albums. This was the time we saw this guy.
I felt like my life was being narrated. You know, it's like that movie with Will Ferrell. Yeah, it was pretty odd. So yeah, that's gonna be a challenge.
Well, you've kind of reached the pinnacle of where you wanted to go. You're now the one that the tourists want to be filming. You know, the next time you go out, they won't even be looking for the snow leopard. They'll be like, "Oh my God, where's Roger Munns? Where's Roger Munns?" But we get to this point in the app because I think we've just hit. Feels like we've probably hit about the hour mark. I always like to finish with these last two things. It's one, advice to your younger self, and then I give you the floor, and you can give a kind of shout out to anyone, the people that are just camera right of you there. So what would be, and you can choose the point in your life that it would be, whether it's that beach bum, whether it's that first time that you wanted to kind of get the turtles filmed and get that sequence made. But what would your advice now be to that younger Roger?
Good question. Yeah, I'm a great believer, and it was interesting earlier. You said, you kind of just found your way into what you do. You know, you didn't have that plan when you were 5 years old, and you just kind of like slid into it. And I kind of believe that even when I was doing something that wasn't, doesn't seem directly related to what I do now, I feel like everything has led me down this road to where I am now, and I'm very happy with where I am now. So I feel like I wouldn't want to change much. I would probably. So I was working for that company, Scuba Zoo, for quite a long time. And I went freelance about 10 years ago. And that was probably just a sort of maybe slight lack of self-belief that I could make it on my own, and if I talk to myself, I would say, look, go do that earlier, like get out there earlier, believe in yourself, go out there, because I feel like, don't be represented by anyone else. Represent yourself. Be yourself. And I'd tell myself to go freelance. Earlier than I did, maybe 5 years earlier. Amazing. Yeah,
amazing self-belief. It's the one that most people kind of come back with. It's kind of believe in yourself and do that scary thing. Just do it sooner. So now look, it's the end of the app. I give you the Film Gods round of applause. I give you the floor to kind of give your your BAFTA and Emmy award speech. Sorry. So no, you have the floor, give a shout out, or if there's any projects coming up that you want to give a shout out to, or people or things or anything that you want to say, now's your time, sir.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Cisco. Well, thanks for having me on. It's been it's been great to riff with you and chat with you, man. It's an honor to be on here, dude. I would say, I'd love everyone to watch Our Oceans, obviously. Pretty proud of what we and the whole team did there. I think it's beautifully shot, and I think there's some compelling stories there, which is what we're all about, right? It's all about the stories. Got a couple of things. I'm just starting a new project. I can't talk about it because of NDAs and stuff, but that's like a 6-month shoot next year. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's me a few things. We have a long gestation period, so there's a few things that I've already shot that will be coming out across the next year or so. Pretty fun one with Ryan Reynolds narrating. So I think that's kind of Deadpool narration. That's going to be really interesting, and that's going to be like a fun new twist on wildlife, because they're trying to reach new audiences in our industry rather than the traditional audience. So that's going to be some heavy innuendo laden stuff going on there.
Wall breaking.
Exactly. It's going to be really interesting to see how that that goes down. So I'm excited. I think that'll be out probably mid next year on Disney. So yeah, that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, thanks again, man, for having me on. It was lovely to chat. It's always nice to chat with people in the industry, especially slightly different ones. So it was great, man.
Thank you, brother. Amazing.
So that was a chat with the king or queen in the game. I'll give it a shout at the end so you all know the name. It's the Film Gods Podcast. The what? The Film God Podcast.